What's going on? This is the Saturday Down South podcast. Subscribe to Saturday Down South on YouTube. I am Connor O'Gara. Will, week 6 is here. October is here. Spooky season is upon us. Do you have your giant skeleton outside your house right now?
That is on the to-do list for this weekend, Connor. Are you guys doing Halloween? I'm sure you guys have a cute costume scheme.
Oh, of course. It's already... So we have Claire's costume. She is a duck this year. She got it like 2 weeks ago.
Aww.
The costume. Yeah. We have already kind of made our trick-or-treating plan. It's on a Friday this year, which sets up really well. Have talked to the people that we trick-or-treat with. Everything is in fold. I initially had thought about going to the Oklahoma-Tennessee game, and then I realized, no, don't try and do that because that's Halloween weekend and you don't want to miss this. So we very much have our Halloween schedule pretty much laid out. How about you?
I'm locked in. I got to get my Costco order for my full-size candy bars. We're going to begin construction on the skeleton. It's going to be like the pyramids. We're going to have to get some ropes going up. We're going to have to get it going. But yeah, I think this is my opportunity to be, the cool younger neighbor that everybody can be like, oh, look at this guy. He's living the dream or whatever. So got to make sure my yard's looking good. Got to make sure we're all locked down.
The full-size candy bar thing, I have changed my stance on. I have said on this show that I think it's a myth that people don't actually do it. Knowing that you do it, and I also have friends that live like 6-7 minutes away from us. They also did it last year for the first time, and I saw the impact of it. Full-size candy bars, confirmed real. Now that I've heard it from multiple places, multiple people that I actually know, as opposed to just, oh, this kid said he got this massive Reese's bar when he was a kid and it was the best day of his life. No. Real thing that's happening. I think even my mom did it last year.
There you go.
Where was this? Where was this when I was a kid, though? Where was this? Well, all these people in my life that were willing to do it, and now they're older and they're like, oh yeah, now's the time to do it. I should have been born in a different generation as well.
You got to be the change you want to see in the world. You talked about Claire being a duck. Nothing brings me more joy than to feel like Santa Claus, where these kind of kids are like, oh my gosh, full-size candy bar. Especially as kind of the night goes on, kids that are in that older age bracket are getting a little bit weary. You can tell they've been around, and they're like, this guy's our last house for the night. So yeah, I love Halloween, man.
I shouted full-size candy bar at this house has full-size candy bars at a bunch of kids last year. I realized very, very quickly after saying it, I'm in my mid-30s now. I probably shouldn't be shouting things at kids.
It's the little things, man. It's the little things. It brings you joy. You're just a wholesome dude. That's the thing.
We try to be. Plan for today. We have a great show coming up. We have Matt Hayes in a bit talking about the Power Conference coaching vacancies. We're going to film. We're going to be athletic directors, and we are going to give them their new head coaches. So we will do that. Great discussion as always with Matt. We have week 6 games coming up. We have 4 different games to be able to get to in a second here. I'm heading to the Swamp for Texas, Florida. Looking forward to that. So that's going to be a lot of fun. So a lot of things to get to before we get to everything. And Lad of the week. I'm going to spoil mine right now. It's the coach that beat James Franklin. Lad of the week coming up.
That's the lad of every week. He's doing America's service right there.
Yes. Before we get to everything, though, quick word from our friends at Dabble. Guys, I've been talking about Dabble for a while. And if you are into daily fantasy, Dabble is the place to do it. It is one of the newest and best apps in the daily fantasy space. They've wasted no time making a name for themselves. The social function is second to none. They offer a wide variety of sports for making picks, including college football, NFL. I'm rocking a Cubs jersey right now. We're in full swing for the playoffs. By the time people are listening to this, maybe game 2 is going to be over. Hopefully that means the Cubs have moved on to the NLDS. We'll see. Use promo code SDS2 when you sign up today. Receive $25 in bonus cash. No deposit required. Again, that is promo code SDS2 for $25 in bonus cash, courtesy of the good folks at Dabble. Will, week 6. Let's start with Kentucky and Georgia. Georgia's a 20.5-point favorite. Number 12, Georgia, by the way, after losing that game to Alabama. The over-under I have is 5 sacks for Georgia. It's kind of a lot. It's what Georgia has in the season.
Oh, wow.
5. Yeah, that's it. 3 of them are from Chris Cole, by the way. It's been look, it hasn't been necessarily a sack-heavy team under Kirby Smart. If you look at all the defensive talent that Georgia has had over the course of the last decade, you'll be surprised to then line it up with a box score. and look at some of the numbers that they've put up, despite how good some of these guys have gone on to be, in the NFL, how decorated they were in college. It's just been the way that they kind of rotate guys in that front seven. But they've still also finished in the top 50 in sacks all but 1 year under Kirby Smart. This year, as it stands, I know they've only played 4 games. They're 121st in FBS in sacks. Only 1 quarterback hit to add to those, by the way. Definitely explains the third down struggles that they had against Alabama, why Ty Simpson looks so comfortable. Bama converts 13 third downs in that game. And this has just been an area of weakness for Georgia this year. They lost Jalen Walker and Mykel Williams to the draft. But in previous years, you would just say, all right, no big deal. They'll reload. That's just what Georgia does. And there's still talent there. But a guy like Damon Wilson II, he hits the portal very late in the cycle, by the way, and is now doing great things at Mizzou. He leads the SEC with 22 pressures, 16 hurries. That guy's been awesome so far. A guy like Sam Mpemba, who left for A&M, would have been one of these, top 50, top 100 guys that by the time he hits year 3 at Georgia, you just kind of expect him to pop. And I'm not saying that he's exploding at A&M, but just one of these guys that you could just turn to and say, go get us a pressure on third down, be a specialist right now. And they just kind of lack that right now. And it's not to say that they lack talent, but there's just so much more pressure, I think, on these younger guys to get home. And Georgia is just kind of having to figure out what exactly that looks like. Georgia doesn't have an edge rusher, Will, with more than 3 hurries. That's really bad, especially when you consider there are 53 SEC edge rushers with at least 3 hurries this year. 53.
That's crazy, man. I feel like from Georgia's standpoint, they've kind of been built to control the gaps in the line of scrimmage more than having specialized edge rushers. This is just a theory here, by the way. Tell me if this lines up with what you've seen. But if it's like, okay, the teams that have succeeded at sacks have kind of had those specialized edge rushers that get outside and free run to the quarterback. Whereas it feels like Georgia under Kirby has been a lot more concerned with, let's not really give up that home run play in the run game. Let's make sure all the gaps are controlled. Let's cover things on the back end. But to your point, that's fine to a point when the DB play is great. When your guys can hold up in coverage, when you're completely shutting down the run game, and you can kind of play in those gaps. So yeah, it feels like it's also kind of losing a step every year. Does that feel accurate?
Yeah, and I think last year even with those guys, with Jalen Walker, with Mykel Williams, Mykel Williams was banged up in the first part of the season, but it was touch and go. Now you could have games like the Texas game where they just look unstoppable. Who's getting in the way of those guys? Those are true game wreckers. And I think at this point, if you're Georgia, that's more of the hope, is that you can just get guys that pop on occasion and take over a game. Because I think game to game, it's going to probably have to be something that they work around, and Kirby Smart and Glenn Schumann need to kind of figure out, because it can improve. But I don't know that it's going to be there, especially off the edges. It's great that Chris Cole and Raylan Wilson can generate a pass rush, but like those guys are being asked to play more inside, and they're not necessarily rushing the passer 15, 20 times in a game. It's more of like a 6 to 8. And you just don't have that constant threat in those ways. So, it's been a different sort of defensive start for Georgia. Definitely a different defense than last year. But the good news for Georgia, this should be a get-right game against Kentucky. It should, because Cutter Boley, he doesn't have the mental clock just yet. We saw that when Dylan Stewart, that South Carolina defense, harassed him pretty good for 6 sacks. Kentucky's only allowed 9 sacks this year, which is not that much, but it's still pretty high considering they don't throw the football a whole lot.
I was going to say they have 9 completions. So when you put that into perspective, it's like the most sacks in the world.
Yeah, and if you look at it a little bit closer, like Cutter Boley, he's got 16 dropbacks that he was pressured so far, and 6 of those times he was sacked. Just 2 completions on 8 non-throwaway attempts for him this year. This should be teed up for Georgia's defense, specifically the pass rushers, to figure some things out. I think they do that. Kentucky hasn't scored 18 points in Athens since 2009, which used to be the answer to our favorite trivia question. When was the last time Georgia lost a home game at night? 2009 against Kentucky. That is a distant memory, a very, very distant memory. It's been a rough go for Mark Stoops in that building. I don't think it's the prettiest game from Georgia's offense in this one.
I think we could guarantee that this game will be ugly. Even if Georgia plays really well, I think the chances of Kentucky looking pretty in this game are -5.
Yeah, I just wouldn't bank on that. Maybe it's a pick six or something like that, that Kentucky can turn to stay relevant early. But I think they've had some issues kind of on the back end with tackling. Kentucky has, and guys, getting loose in the secondary that you just aren't used to seeing that much under Mark Stoops. So I think this is a Zachariah Branch game. I think he's the one that kind of gets Georgia going. It's a man, I'm glad I called that guy moment for him. And I'm going to go Georgia to win 28-10 in a game that might actually feel closer than that. Here's your key gambling stat from my guy, Adam Luckett at KSR. Shout out KSR. Georgia is 0-16 in its last 16 regular season games as a 20-point favorite. Isn't that wild? It kind of feels like it too,
polite,
doesn't it?
man. He's
No,
got respect for ball.
No, he's not. He's the guy that's losing his mind when they're up 35-7. Like, he's still that guy. It's just hasn't translated. And when you start slow, like Georgia has just done these last couple of years, that's kind of going to be something that's hard to overcome. And Kentucky's also 7-2-1 against the spread in its last 10 road games as a 15-point underdog. So good stats by Adam, because I've been kind of feeling like that's been the case for both of these teams. Also, Mark Stoops has never kept it within 2 scores in Athens. I don't think that this Kentucky team is the one that beats that trend. So 28-10 Georgia is the prediction.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think this is going to be kind of a clinic for Georgia, especially you just talked about kind of resetting the clock on the trivia question last week about Georgia losing at home. Kirby's going to have lots of bottled up rage. Again, another week where it'd be terrible to be a Kirby smart defensive player, specifically a DB.
Yeesh.
And I will say exactly what I just talked about, like the ball control, gap control, run control style of defense that Kirby likes to play is an absolute nightmare for this current Kentucky team, right? Because when their offense has looked competent, it has been running the football, something that I certainly can't take for granted as an LSU fan, right? But they've been able to do that in kind of some bigger spots this year against Ole Miss, against South Carolina. But then when it's all come apart has been when they have to drop back and pass the ball. Well, I don't think it's going to be an option against Georgia. I think that, when they lock in and are who they think they are, who we expect them to be. We talked about it. They got a rule change this offseason because their defensive front was confusing Texas so much. And so that being said, if you're Kentucky and you're kind of one-dimensional, you're going to unfortunately need a ton of dropbacks. This is kind of the opposite of what I've said about a couple of quarterbacks where it's like, hey, actually, you're going to need to throw the ball to beat Georgia. Let's not run from it. Running the ball into a wall here feels like it's going to be kind of a let's simulate this game and get it over with. So if you're Kentucky, let's have some fun. Try some new stuff. See what you got there, because you already kind of given up the Beamer ball touchdowns against Kentucky or against South Carolina. So doing that again doesn't really, it doesn't move the needle.
Does Georgia lead the nation in pre-snap defensive line shifts? They do it so much, where I'm even jumping off sides. I'm sitting on my couch and I'm false starting.
Popcorn's going everywhere. Yeah.
It's brutal. Yeah, they absolutely love to do that. Yeah, and I think that if you're Kentucky, and Bush Hamden is not Ryan Grubb, and that should be the saving grace for Georgia in this game. I think if you're Kentucky in some of those 3rd and 9 spots, just run the football. Just run the football, and you probably got a better chance of picking it up than airing it out, letting Georgia pin its ears back. And I think there will be a lot of teams watching Georgia in hopes that they don't find those pass rushing options in this one. If they can't figure that out in this game, that is bad long term. That's something I'd be really worried about if I'm a Georgia fan. If you can't tee off against Cutter Boley, I don't know that you're teeing off against anybody in SEC play.
Exactly. This is exactly what we said about South Carolina last week. It's like, hey, you shouldn't have to rely on these big plays. You should just be sound and not have it get to that point. And also, hey, if you're Mark Stoops and you find yourself running the ball on, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 8, and you get, 6 or 7 yards, you can go for it on 4th down. Just take a little bit of advice from last year. Just go ahead and try it. You got nothing to lose. Worst thing you can do is punt in this game.
They're 7-2-1. Covering the spread as a 15-point dog in these spots for a reason. Well,
Stoops is playing for the spread. There you go. He's trying to not lose big.
Yeah. All right. Number 16, Vandy against number 10, Alabama. Alabama's a 10.5-point favorite. Gosh, I'm excited for this one.
Rivalry game. Even streets are saying.
My only regret, yes, it is big time rivalry game at this point. My only regret of going to Texas, Florida is that I'm going to have this on the YouTube TV as I'm watching that in person. And that's a little bit of a tough thought for me to stomach, but it is going to be an unbelievable atmosphere. The over under I have is one reference to sledgehammers and ants. Yeah. This comment that Ryan Williams made with John Gruden in the offseason made the rounds. It will surely be on the minds of Vandy. It will probably be brought up on College Game Day, which, I mean, goodness gracious, that's crazy in itself.
The thing about Ryan Williams, too, is, again, great player, biggest Ryan Williams stan, right? He's one of my favorite Alabama players ever already. But you can't have that build and say that you're a sledgehammer and other people are ants. He took a hit in the Georgia game that I felt at home. That is a small guy. He's a tough guy. He's a tough guy, but he's a guy who's probably been playing hurt at this point for half of his career, because if you had to pick one of those to put him in, he's not exactly the sledgehammer, I would say.
I don't think you get to say you're a sledgehammer when you lose to that team. I don't think you get to say that you're in that spot. Make a playoff, and then we can talk about being a sledgehammer. And I realize Bama has made many a playoff. I'm talking about Ryan Williams during his time at Alabama. Mm-hmm. That's a little bit more of the frustration I'd have with it. But by the way, these teams are both ranked, as Mike Rodak pointed out, first matchup as ranked foes since 1937. The FDR administration.
I was going to say, that feels like FDR, post-Depression, pre-World War II. Can't really place exactly what was going on in American history there, but a time for these two teams for sure.
It was a moment in time. It was that maybe they never thought they'd get back to, but here we are in the year of our Lord 2025, and these teams are playing in a very meaningful game for the playoff race. First time that College Game Day is ever going to a game in which Vandy is the visiting team. Second College Game Day game for Vandy ever. They had the 2008 one against Auburn. Vandy, if it loses, or if Iowa State loses to Cincinnati, those two teams are playing at noon Eastern. Vandy can become the first FBS team to clinch bowl eligibility this year. Isn't that crazy? That is a team that had a regular season over-under of 5.5 wins.
I love it when a plan comes together. Connor, look at what they're building at Vanderbilt. I mean, this makes me so happy for what they're doing right now.
Even if it doesn't happen, though, and even if this ends up being a back-to-earth type of game for Vandy in which Alabama flexes its muscles, the preamble for this game should not be of the Alabama you're next variety. And if you don't know what I'm referring to, the clip that's aged worse than milk. I don't know if there is a single soundbite that is aged worse than that clip did after we saw a Vandy player. I'm going to butcher the pronunciation of his last name, so I won't even try. Heat of the moment, running off the field after you beat Kansas State. Alabama, you're next. And then, boy, were they not, because 59-0 happened. This is not the 2017 Vandy team that started off 3-0. This is a 5-0 Vandy team that beat Bama last year. They can talk trash. I will let them talk trash. Doesn't mean they're going to back it up, but I will not scoff at them if they talk trash and then they lose this game by 28 points, okay? They have put themselves in this position in a way that the 2017 Alabama, your next team, did not. Can we just acknowledge that at this moment in time before we do revisionist history on Sunday when we record?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that just officially we need to tear up kind of a lot of the historical stuff here. Here's a great fact for you, Connor. This is the first time both of these teams have been ranked since the Hindenburg disaster. That's what happened in 1937. So,
too soon.
Too soon. Yeah, we got to shouts out to them. But anyway, I think that, something I've noticed in running SDS's social is that whenever there's a good feeling story like this, kind of the power teams will like scoff at them and be like, oh, it's just Vandy. Oh, what's Vandy going to do? What's Vandy going to do? And it's like, guys, number one, if you were for college football, again, like I've talked about, if you're Georgia, if you're LSU, whatever, you shouldn't be threatened by this team. You should see this motivation that you can do more with less.
It's gatekeeping.
It's gatekeeping, right? And furthermore, you got to throw history out, because to your point, this is not one win. This is not an upset. We're seeing more and more of these programs be able to build something off of that hopium with the expanded playoff and convince portal guys, which is a newer development of, hey, we can be a 2-3 loss team and make some noise here, which is exactly where Vandy sits right here. A legitimate team that's building something. They're not a flash in the pan. You talked about them talking trash. They already did that kind of against South Carolina, against some of their preseason foes. They've already won, back-to-back against VTech. So, yeah, I think this is more of a trend than a blip on the radar.
They're plus 375 to make the playoff. I'm just saying, like, this team is not, for those who have not watched Vandy this year, this team, I don't know that they're going to end up being a playoff team. That's not what I'm saying, but they are just not, they are not false confidence. And I think people look at Diego Pavia, and all the confidence that he plays with, that he talks with, that he walks with, and they want to see him humbled. And they want to see this guy have this moment wherein he has egg on his face. That's the gatekeeping that comes with this. If you're kind of on the outside looking in, and the fact that he's already, I read the AL.com story where he said Tuscaloosa will be a good fun time. Sledgehammer to an ant is still a worse thing to say, in my opinion, than that. But whatever, we don't need to go there.
Yeah, and really quick, that also comes with the gatekeeping of like, don't say a negative thing about these teams, And I will say too, a lot of college football, because it can be so mercurial with like a ball bouncing one way. Often when a team has a statement year, that next year is about staying there. It's about not falling off, not being labeled frauds. I think Vandy's roundly better this year than last year, which is kind of inexplicable.
I mean, think about it. Last year, this is a Vandy team that beat Alabama and then beat Haynes King in the bowl game. A guy we have a ton of respect for. And we talk about Brent Key's program at Georgia Tech and the amount of grit that they play with. And Vandy kind of beat the brakes off of them in that game.
There's never been a more serious bowl game than that one. Like, you can't tell me Georgia Tech didn't take that one seriously, because again, Haynes King was going to die on the turf of Birmingham, Alabama, if he could win.
Yeah, but we do this weird thing, or at least some do, because we didn't think of it in the preseason. We didn't think this was going to be a possibility. We want to feel better about our take and not feel like this team is catching us off guard. And so if Vandy goes out there and loses to Alabama, which, by the way, Alabama has lost one home game in the 2020s, okay, and it was 2023 to Texas. That's the only home game that they've lost in the 2020s. If Vandy loses this game, people will be like, see. And you'll see it in the AP poll, which is getting more and more ridiculous by the week and just makes me want to pull out my hair. And you'll see some people just drop Vandy out of the top 25 altogether for losing at Alabama, which is just like the most reactionary take ever. But this team is better. And I need to keep telling people that, even if this result does not reflect exactly that point. They're almost a yard and a half better in terms of yards per play. Still really good with the turnover margin, but not as reliant as they were on last year. They were a little bit more bend but don't break last year defensively. They've been better running the ball with their non-Diego Pavia options. They're just a better team. And I don't know that being a better team means beating Alabama consecutive times. Okay. One team has done that since 2016. It was Michigan 2023 and 2024. That's it. Okay.
They sure did do that. You're right.
People forget that. Very different Michigan teams and very different Alabama teams, but also different Alabama coaches. But you get what I'm saying. People don't beat Alabama in consecutive years. I think people remember the Ole Miss teams being able to do that 2014, 2015, and they think, oh, well, see, someone can join that group. Or because Auburn had consecutive wins at Jordan-Hare against Alabama, people think, oh, I guess you can do that. It just doesn't happen. So if that's your measuring stick for deciding whether or not Vandy is good, I'd say you're moving the goalposts a little bit too far. Now, it's not to say that anything Vandy does should be considered a moral victory, but look, this is going to be a difficult task. This is going to be a difficult task for all the reasons that we outlined, for Alabama being potentially the scariest team in the SEC in a given day, okay? And it's also Kalen DeBoer, who is coaching a game at home. Will Kalen DeBoer at home, pretty darn good. Hasn't lost a home game since he was at Fresno State 2021. Okay.
Oh, Mike, say that again for the people at home.
Kalen DeBoer has not lost a home game since he was at Fresno State in 2021.
That's nuts. That is just...
It's a good coach.
And I think it's starting to, like we've talked about, I think it's starting to be a trend where like winning on the road is getting harder. But again, that being said, like if you look at Vandy's schedule, man, they had Charleston Southern or whatever, but they went to Virginia Tech, famous tough road atmosphere. They went to South Carolina, famous hard to win road atmosphere. So we talked about last week, and Alabama could be the scariest team in the SEC, and I like that you referenced that. Vandy is kind of the nightmare matchup for that mentality, because Diego Pavia fears God, homie. He doesn't fear anybody else. He fears God, homie.
He might fear his brothers, maybe. Probably not.
They're on his side. Diego. That's the thing. You got a squad of them.
True. So look, I think oddly, it's better for Alabama that Vandy's this good. I don't think you have to sell that. I think if you're Kalen DeBoer, you can look at your track record and know this is the type of game that you have gotten up for. He's got 4 losses to unranked teams at Alabama. Not sure if we've ever said that before. He's got just 3 losses to AP top 25 teams during his entire time as a head coach. 16-3. in those matchups.
This is
Jim
bordering
Dunaway
on
made
like
this.
Charlie Daniels' Deal with the Devil type, where it's like you're amazing at home, you're amazing against the teams that you like, technically shouldn't beat, that are hard to beat, but every once in a while you're just going to drop a stinker.
That's been Kalen DeBoer as a head coach to a T. You're going to beat Oregon.
So many
But other
times.
than
I
that,
mean, just
yeah,
bleep rolling Oregon. Just every time Oregon thinks that it's their turn, they got to get Kalen DeBoer out of town. In fact, Dan Lanning and Phil Knight were probably paying Kalen DeBoer to go away.
he did lose to them when he was at Fresno State. But other than that, I mean, I think we'll give him a pass.
How
We'll give him a
dare
pass
he?
for that.
Those Fresno
Yeah.
State years are really coming back to haunt him. This is like Kirby started at Georgia right here, folks.
Yeah, Jim Dunaway made the point on the next round of like if Vandy is good, this is not the type of team that Bama is going to sleep on. I think you could point to last year. We have revisionist history on our side to say this and say that even after the Georgia win that vaulted Alabama to number 1 in the country, Alabama still did not have a defensive identity. And that surfaced at the worst possible time against Vandy, who just exposed every single possible area of weakness, including who are they even going to listen to in that game, wherein they're fighting internally. They can't focus on stopping Diego Pavia in that game. And I'm not saying that Alabama has 100% turned the corner. This is going to be a top 5 defense. They're probably still going to have some moments this year, maybe even in this game, in which they're reminded, oh yeah, this isn't 2017 Alabama defense. We have things to figure out. But I still kind of come back to Alabama will not be disrespecting Vandy at all. And Tim Beck, he dunked all over Kane Wommack's defense last year. I think they'll still have some success, but Bama gets up for this one. Bama wins 35-21. Diego Pavia finally does not get the last laugh on the state of Alabama like he has just done throughout his entire career.
Yeah, I think, okay. So really quick, did you know that Vandy's 4th in America in points per game right now?
Yes. And I think it's easy to lose sight of that, especially last week, wherein Utah State's offense is better than it gets credit for. Bryson Barnes, former Utah quarterback, like they were moving the ball pretty well against A&M actually at Kyle Field. That's going to get lost in the shuffle because they let up 35 points in that game, and it ended up being kind of just a strange game in which Vandy was able to pull away in the second half. But the offense has been good. They've gotten a lot of these big chunk plays this year, and they have a lot of different ways to beat you. And it's not just Diego Pavia, go pick up 8 yards and move the chains for us.
Yeah, and I think, just to be clear, I know everybody's gonna say early in the season. First off, we're 5 games in. Second off, like I said, I can't not reward Vandy for scheduling Virginia Tech on the road just for Virginia Tech is basura. Like, I'm sorry. We all love Enter Sandman. We did a whole thing about it, how it's amazing to walk out. Just because Virginia Tech didn't live up to that doesn't mean that, Vandy didn't have to go in there and win that game. And again, same thing starting at South Carolina. They didn't control that, obviously. But I'm not going to hold that against them, that they're succeeding in these hostile environments. But that being said, I do think the defensive side of the ball, especially after we've seen, the third down performance. I mean, these are two the third down performance by Alabama last week, obviously, is what I'm talking about. But these are two ball control, third down, push the pile offenses. So I think for that reason, it might end up being a low scoring game just because, the clock is going to be rolling. We're going to have 3-yard dump off passes, all that. But I think it really does come down to Ryan Grove versus Vandy's defense and the Sea Snake and all the guys that they've, kind of brought in and brought back. So as weird as that sounds, as much as Kane Wommack versus Diego Pavia is going to be fun, I'm more intrigued by that side of the ball because I'm still not exactly sure about Vandy's defense, to your point where, yeah, like you let up some points against Utah State, but it was kind of not really in doubt. So, yeah, this is going to be an interesting one for sure. I think they'll keep it close just by the nature of the game script, if nothing else.
That's the toughest thing to sell if you're believing in Vandy to win this game outright, is that Vandy's defense, while it has performed incredibly well, they've been, I think, fortunate in the first part of the year, even though they have been good. And I think it's an improved unit. They were fortunate they didn't play a full 60 minutes of Lenore Sellers. That's not to take away from what they did while he was out there. I thought they really frustrated him while he was out there before he got the concussion in that game. And I realized that Virginia Tech offensively kind of just fell apart in the second half, but Vandy still made them fall apart. And Vandy has still cleared out 2 buildings, 2 hostile atmospheres in the middle of the fourth quarter. That's not an easy thing to do. And go ask Alabama about that. Okay. It's not an easy thing to go on the road and do those things. It's just not. So I hope that we get a good competitive game. I want to see those splash plays from Pavia where it's him against the world, and Johnny Manziel being there on Saturday, which he's supposed to, is just so perfect in a lot of different ways, because that's who Diego Pavia is trying to channel as much as possible. Like, he talked about how he watched the Alabama game like a million times before this game last year. And if you didn't know any better, you'd think that is a little brother of Johnny Manziel. That is someone who's related to him in some capacity. And we're going to get the shots of them dapping each other up pregame and stuff like that. And I'm not saying he goes full Manziel in this one, but I hope there are those moments in which we're like, Diego Pavia touchdown, and then just immediate camera shot to Johnny Manziel, just like smiling and laughing along. That would make this game live up to the billing, in my opinion.
Absolutely. You got to wonder how Marcel Reed feels about that, right? Because he's like, Manziel, come on, buddy. This is the first time we've been good since you were here. What do you mean? You don't love me. You love this kid. But seeing the comparisons are obvious. So, yeah, I'm going to go low scoring game. It could be about like a 28 or 24-21 game in the favor of Bama. But I do think, to your point, I don't think that losing this game makes Vandy into frauds. If anything, I think it makes Bama battle tested, especially back-to-back weeks against what we think are very good teams at this point in the season. On the road against Georgia, at home against Vandy, where Kalen DeBoer has been kind of unstoppable at home. But these are the road warriors in the SEC in Diego Pavia. So weirdly, I think this would legitimize Bama more than it would knock down Vandy with a win.
And Mizzou coming up after this for Bama. Trip to Mizzou. It's a bummer that game's at noon, 11 a.m. local time. Just like what 2023 was for Mizzou. You get to host LSU, and it's this big time matchup. Oh, by the way, it's 11 a.m. local time. Enjoy that.
It's like the SEC. What are we doing with Mizzou here? You give them this easy schedule of back-to-back years, but you make them play at noon. Like, do you want them to win? Do you want them to lose? Do you want to give them hype? Do you not? So drawing a conspiracy here for Mizzou is very hard because, again, they've seen two of these noon games that are kind of like the biggest games.
True. All right. Number 9, Texas, 7-point favorites against Florida. The over-under I have is 3.58 yards per play for Florida. That's what Texas is allowing this year, best in America. So far this year, in 4 games, Florida's offense has averaged 6.1 yards per play against LIU, the AI school. Shout out to Sharks. 5.5 yards per play against USF. 4.8 yards per play at LSU. 2.7 yards per play at Miami. Marcus Satterfield, that is bad. Really, really bad. If you know, you know. Going in the wrong direction there. Going in the direction that you would say, it's 2.5 yards per play going to happen against Texas. I wouldn't rule that out. DJ Lagway's health might also be going in the wrong direction, because just very 2025 Lagway that he starts the bye week in a walking boot. And look, might as well have just put him in bubble wrap, just throw him in a cave somewhere at this point and pray that he doesn't get hurt and run into a bear. I don't know. But this guy, for whatever reason, injuries are just going to continue to follow him.
And I mean, what a sad year so far for the SEC. We talked about Lenore Sellers hurt, Nussmeier, again, I'm going to say it, hurt, Lagway hurt.
I'm gonna push back on that in a sec, but I know what you're saying.
Yeah, and so like the guys that we got so excited about this season, the smoke clears and it's just Diego Pavia and Joey Aguilar.
let's not forget John Mateer.
I know. John Mateer's also hurt.
True. Sad year for the decorated preseason guys in the SEC.
Yep, 100%.
Just like it was the year before, but at the same time, you look up and new guys emerge, and all of a sudden, Trinidad Chambliss is taking over the college football world. There's always these guys, man. Like we just cycle them in and cycle them out. That's the way that Bo Prabula is playing out of his mind right now.
Oh yeah.
Just different than what we expected coming into the season for sure. But yeah, this game kind of sums that up to a T. Like this, I don't know. I haven't come up with a clever enough name for this game yet. Maybe I will by the time I'm in my car on Saturday and driving. I'm trying to think about creative things. But we need some sort of name for this as the quarterbacks who let us down bowl, at least so far in the first part of the year.
I can't even say Arch Manning is hurt. I just think he's been kind of basura. But again, if you're flexing on Sam Houston State, boy, do I have a team for you. Anyway.
Yeah, maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. I feel better about Arch than I do about DJ Lagway. I'll say that, because one guy has Billy Napier calling plays for him and one guy doesn't. So that from that standpoint, feels like advantage Texas there. This is the same play caller who dialed up one pass play longer than 20 yards all year for DJ Lagway. And you remember what it was the Vernell Brown, Odell Beckham catch. That is DJ Lagway's lone pass play that went for 20 yards past the line of scrimmage this year. Not great. Not exactly a schemed look.
They're putting on NIL shirts for the one catch. Yeah, I mean, this right here, though, if you're Florida, Steve Sarkisian is such an example of what a program like Florida could do in the NIL era. Here I am being super nice to Florida, but it's true, right? Where it's like, hey, if you get your guy, if you believe in him, if you're a destination job, you can use those resources and have an actually competent play caller. I mean, Steve Sarkisian has built what they hoped or what they thought they had in Billy Napier almost exactly, right?
In a lot of ways. In a lot of ways. I don't know that Florida went into the Billy Napier era assuming that they were getting one of the 5 best offensive minds in the sport. But I think they at least found, or at least they thought they found a guy that's going to have an identity, and they'll be able to build that identity throughout the 2020s, and they can recruit to that, and they'll have somebody that's just a good long-term fit who kind of keeps his head above the fray with all of that. And from that standpoint, it has not lived up to it at all. And I think year 4 is played out more so than ever. The gap between expectations and results has just never been greater for Florida than what it's been this year during the Billy Napier era. And, it's a bummer to think about where both of these quarterbacks are at right now. Like, as somebody who was really excited to see DJ Lagway and Arch Manning play football this year, it is a bummer to think about. I look up these numbers for DJ Lagway, Will, and I'm so depressed. Like, 68% of his passes have been 9 yards or less this year. That is so bad.
Sorry, that is just one more time now.
68% of his passes have been 9 yards or less. That's past the line of scrimmage that we're talking about.
And again, a guy that has a cannon for an arm, continues to, right? Because that's obviously not part of his leg. I think that it's a guy whose play style doesn't fit his play caller. That's exactly what why you bring in Graham Mertz. It's kind of what he did at UL. And when you get a guy with a rocket arm, it almost does feel like kind of a square peg round hole, as it kind of did with Anthony Richardson.
So I've talked about this before, and I'll bring it up one more time. I'm sure I'll probably bring it up again on Sunday. I decided in July that I wanted to go to this game, and just a little peel behind the onion. I love going to games. I love being, in an SEC atmosphere, big time college football atmosphere, like second to none. I don't want to dismiss the importance of that in this job. And I think it's important to be able to get out there and see things in person, because sometimes it puts things into perspective that you just can't from watching at home on your couch. But I also don't love missing other games and missing parts of other games. Lauren knows that as well as anyone. Like, I'm not going to miss 10 minutes of this Mississippi State A&M game right now. I want to be able to lock in. How does Marcel Reed respond in this? Like, I like to be able to watch everything. And so that's why I'm not one of these people that goes to games every single week. But I figured with a light SEC slate, this would be an ideal game to be able to get to see these two guys in person. And it is so disappointing to think about where my expectations were in July when I decided I want to go to this game, as opposed to right now, and I'm just wondering if one of these teams is going to get to 3 touchdowns in this game, because I thought maybe we'd be talking about huge Heisman ramifications in a game like this, maybe all SEC battle decided or something like that. I just would not bank on getting a whole lot of reminders of that in this game, especially with how good these defenses have been so far. Like, if you're trying to project moving forward, I just have much more reason for Arch Manning optimism than I do Lagway. And we've talked about the Lagway stuff, so we don't need to get into that again. But it's not just because Arch stood over the Sam Houston State defender to get his swagger back. To be clear, I don't think Arch has been good at all. And I think there are legitimate concerns with what he's done so far. Footwork, I think the arm angles, all that's very well documented. So I'm not putting lipstick on a pig by saying what I'm about to say, nor am I assuming that mechanical issues like that are all of a sudden just going to snap and fix themselves in SEC play. Even if you have a really good offensive mind at your disposal, like Steve Sarkisian is, I still think that there are troubling long-term things with him. But I'll say this. The surroundings will help. The surroundings are going to help him. Texas had a lot of injuries in the first month of the season on the offensive side of the ball. Looks like there's a decent shot that they're going to get both Trey Wisner and TJ Baxter back for this game after they were out with multi-week injuries. Emmett Mosley, the Stanford receiver who was expected to do big things, he could be back for the first time this year. They did get DeAndre Moore back against Sam Houston State. The offense looked a whole lot better against a very overmatched Sam Houston State team, obviously. And oddly, I do think it's a little bit tricky sometimes. And Will, you saw your fair share of mobile quarterbacks at LSU in the 2010s. It's a little bit tricky sometimes in non-conference play when you have a mobile quarterback and you don't want to run him and you don't want to expose him to those hits. And sometimes, like what we talk about with Lenore Sellers in South Carolina, you just have these games in which your offense looks stuck in the mud and it's got no juice. And you're wondering, when are they going to put their foot on the gas and just kind of go? And that's been Texas. Now, it's not to say that Arch has just never run the ball at all, but you can cut it loose a little bit more with him now because he's only had 8 scrambles in those first 4 games. He's had 25 total rushing attempts through the first month of the season. That area, though, that I just say it has to improve or else Texas is just going to be in a rough spot. The short passing game, man. Such a staple of the Steve Sarkisian offense. Ewers kind of mastered it last year, and Arch has not mastered it this year. 3.6 yards per attempt is what he is averaging when he attempts a pass between 0 and 9 yards from the line of scrimmage. That's like an inefficient run play. That's bad. Really bad. You should be getting 6, 7, 8, 9 yards on those plays every single time. That's easily dead last in the SEC.
So we've got
even below Lagway.
Let me see if I got this right. We have one offense that's addicted to throwing short passes and one offense that just can't execute them.
Yeah. And Texas has tried. It's not from a lack of effort. I mean, that has been kind of the calling card of the Steve Sarkisian offense, and it was last year a lot with Ewers. We talked about that so much, and Ewers was averaging close to 8 yards per attempt on those throws. Arch being at that spot that's where you see if you're throwing sidearm, if you're not setting your feet, squaring your shoulders, doing all those things. Like, I'm not going to pretend like I'm a quarterback guru here, but it doesn't take a quarterback scientist to understand why they're struggling in those areas and why there's a little bit more margin for error on some of those deep downfield shots, which Arch has been able to hit some of those. Like, he's got 10 completions on passes of 20 yards past the line of scrimmage, and he's not taking bad sacks, which is good. So even though the pressure rate has been pretty high, like, he's getting rid of the football, and he can still throw that nice deep ball to make up for it. But I just think that even if none of that really improves and none of that actually gets better and it's kind of just more of the same for the rest of the season in his first year as a starter, this Texas defense is good. It's so good. I'm taking the Longhorns to respond after getting hit in the mouth early in this one. I think Florida comes out firing. I'm going 20-10 Longhorns. Over-under is 42.5, and even that feels high.
Yeah, I'm actually glad somehow your preview missed like in terms of you talked about stuff I was not going to talk about, which is perfect because you literally hit on the offensive side of it. And I was going to talk about the defensive side of it, which is like, hey guys, again, I hear the peanut gallery, but again, we are this deep into the season, and Texas traveled to Columbus to start the year. So I don't want to hear about Sam Houston State. I don't want to hear any of that. Texas defense is number 1 in the SEC in opposing rushing yards per game. Okay, so all the stuff about Jaden Ball not getting the ball, I think you're exactly right on it, which is don't even really try to run the ball. If you're Florida, you need to swing the ball out wide. You need to get those like short passes going and build on that and actually do something with it, because I don't think they're going to find that against Texas. I think that Texas, you look up and down kind of the stats for this Texas defense, they're last in the SEC conference teams in penalties. Like, there's just so many things to like about this. And it just goes to what Steve Sarkisian has built here, where it's not about the big names on offense. Quinn Ewers, like we talked about, was kind of injured last year. Didn't exactly live up to the billing. Arch Manning is starting off not exactly living up to the billing. But then, on the other side of the ball, DJ Lagway's leading the conference in picks, right? So a Texas team that loves a turnover, that does not commit penalties, that is so disciplined, that is going to control the gaps. A Florida team that is going to kind of try to hang out around the line of scrimmage, just, set up a little cooler, a little folding chair, try to do some stuff. So, yeah, I think that you have to hit on your deep shots if you were Florida. I think you're right there about, this is a great Florida defense to get Arch Manning in a rhythm. As far as line of scrimmage, how do you think that Florida is going to protect DJ Lagway in this game? I think that actually could be a pretty critical one.
I don't have a whole lot of faith in that. I would not want Colin Simmons rushing off the edge, getting a free, clean look at DJ Lagway which is the risk if you're going to try and do the drop back passing stuff. Like there's a reason why Lagway's had one completion past 20 yards this year, as we mentioned before. And I think they've only attempted like 7. They're not even trying that because they don't want him exposed in those plays. And then there's also, if he's hurt more significantly than they're even letting on in an injury report, then maybe he can't even make those throws. And so that's the issue, is that you're right. This is going to end up, and as you were outlining that plan of what Billy Napier's probably going to do, this is probably going to end up being Jaden Baugh getting 9 carries and DJ Lagway having 32 passing attempts. Yep. And we're sitting here going, how can this happen week after week after week? And you're right. Texas run defense is really, really good. Okay. I would still want to see more of Jaden Baugh in this one. Just more of this guy. Get the end arounds going. Something that gives Texas a reason to second guess itself, because teams are not second guessing themselves against Florida's offense. They know exactly what they're going to do, and they're one step ahead every single time.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I might actually go back on that. I think you're right there, because the strength of Florida's offensive line is kind of the middle. And we talked about, how Georgia was built earlier, where they're a line of scrimmage team. I'd actually say the inverse about Texas, where they are built to create these free rushers. You talked about Colin Simmons and those boys. So actually, I'm going to go back on what I said. I think Florida should probably try to attack the middle of this defense to at least kind of, give Lagway a breather here and save him for some of the deeper stuff. Because, if you're sitting back there 40 times and you got Colin Simmons just like licking his chops, staring at you against these tackles who have been a little bit more of the problem there. Again, like, I'm not ready to bail out on the interior of Florida's offensive line, which, again, was supposed to be their strength. I just think they haven't utilized their strength effectively. So, I think, unfortunately, this is going to be a clinic for Texas, like they're going to run their game plan. But here's the thing, and I will get out of this one soon, but it's a fascinating matchup, even though it's not technically a ranked matchup because of the quarterback play and the head coaches and the storylines. If Arch Manning does some of the stuff he's been doing, like, it really just is a who's going to take care of the football game, because we could joke about some of Lagway's turnovers specifically in the LSU game, but Arch had some throws in the Ohio State game that were just as bad, if not worse, where you're just missing guys that I never say this, but like throws that me and you could have made. There were 3 yards in front of the guy where you're just standing there looking at him and you're hitting him in the kneecap. So I think that as long as they could keep these quarterbacks on schedule, whoever can create more havoc essentially wins this game.
Yeah, I think Texas has more areas to get Arch out of that, whereas we've just seen too many of these moments so far in the first part of the year with Lagway to make you think, they don't have a get right play call. They just don't. And that's just a really tough thing to do against a good defense, much less a defense as good and as disciplined as Texas. I think if Florida wins this one, it's a non-offensive touchdown. Like they need at least one of those.
A Billy Napier, how do you like me now game against Steve Sarkisian would be the funniest result we've seen probably since Alabama Vandy. I mean, just because what do we do now? I mean, Texas is like their season's over and Billy is like not getting fired. Actually, I'm going to root for that. Good Lord.
The funny thing is, when this whole thing started after Florida lost to USF, I said Florida's not going to just be 1-5. I think they're going to find a way to win one of these next 4 games to avoid that. I'm kind of running out of games, Will. I'm kind of running out of games here. I just have no faith in the Florida offense. I just don't.
Yeah.
Watch them just come out, like score 21 in the first quarter or something like that. What do we know? What do we know?
That I'm actually rooting for that. Like I said, just a flawless Billy script combined with like a pick six, almost like a la Kyle Trask 2020, where it's like, whoa, we thought this team was bad. Anyway, I'm actually going to be so dialed into this game. It's a great decision to go to this one.
The Texas panic would really set in if that were the case. If your first preseason number 1 team ever, AP poll history, loses its first 2 games to power conference teams, you start off 0-1 in SEC play. Yeesh, that would be not great for Mr. Steve Sarkisian. That would be he needs to get a play caller in here conversations. That would be ramped up in a very, very big way.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Mississippi State, number 6, Texas A&M. Texas A&M 14-point favorites in this one. The over/under I have is 1 Texas A&M touchdown in the first 58 minutes. That's right. Yeah, 1 Texas A&M touchdown in the first 58 minutes. That's what the Bulldogs allowed to Tennessee last week. Isn't that wild, Will? Think about this. Yes. Mississippi State held Tennessee to 1 offensive touchdown in the first 58 minutes in a game in which Tennessee scored 41 points. That's I
That's
don't
nuts.
know.
This game, like I said, this is the best game of the week. I thought they were like some of those like get down, punch the ball. No, I guess it was all just like turnovers.
Ball scored on the first play after the 2-minute timeout, and then a touchdown in overtime, plus 2 defensive touchdowns and 2 Max Gilbert field goals. That's how that happens. Pretty wild. That's just not something you see every day. And Mississippi State also held Northern Illinois to 1 offensive touchdown all game. Alcorn State had 0 points all game. Arizona State, that offense, very decorated with Sam Levitt, Jordan Tyson. They had 2 offensive touchdowns in the that was all game. And then in the first 58 minutes against Southern Miss, 1 offensive touchdown allowed. So to recap, in the first 58 minutes of football that Mississippi State has been playing in these games, they have allowed a total of 5 offensive touchdowns this year. That's 1 per game. Pretty wild. What did A&M just do against Auburn? Score 1 offensive touchdown. I thought Auburn did a really, really nice job on Marcel Reed, preventing him from getting into a rhythm, because he's very much a rhythm quarterback. Once he kind of gets a few of those completions going, it just, with the tempo that they can run, with his mobility, it's just a really tough thing to slow down and stop. And I thought last week, talk about getting quarterbacks out of rhythm, who very much look like they need to be kind of in that flow. Mississippi State did a really nice job preventing Joey Aguilar from getting into a rhythm. Now, he still ends up having a ton of yards in this one, and he still made some big time throws and big time plays, but there were a lot of moments in which you kind of wondering, what's he looking at? This is the guy that turned the football over more than anybody in college football last year. And Mississippi State kind of brought that out in him. I also thought Mississippi State was really, really good against a high-powered Tennessee rushing attack. Like, I'm telling you, Mississippi State's defense, nobody's going to be talking about it, understandably so. There are not sickos that are sitting there breaking down Coleman Hutzler and what his unit is doing. It's among the most improved units in the SEC with Tillman and Manning and the things that they're doing. I love A&M's offense. Like I was saying as recently as 2 weeks ago, I think A&M could end up having the best offense in the SEC this year. I truly do. But I think this is going to be another tough day at the office. I really do. And I wouldn't have said that at this time last week, but I'm going low scoring. Aggies find a way to win this one. Kind of ugly again, 24-14.
Yeah, and I mean, it's one of those things where we've already talked about the QB play and kind of the offense across the SEC not living up to expectations. So it'd be easy to say like, oh, well, of course the defenses look better. But if you look at the sample size, I mean, the non-conference performance by the SEC this year, and you hit on it, was awesome, right? Even in the Ohio State game, Texas was able to limit a lot of things that Ohio State did in Columbus. We talked about what Mississippi State was able to do against Arizona State at the time. So I really don't think this is fool's gold, where we see a lot of improvement from these defensive units across the SEC. And Mississippi State's got to be honestly the best case of that, right? Where, last year they were just hapless. They had no identity on either side of the ball. It was like, yeah, they had some close games in a way, but, it's Michael Van Buren doing some cool stuff, but it was never really a team that was taken seriously. And this year, you got your offensive head coach, so you already can kind of fall back on that. Got your starting quarterback, which is a big deal. But then the defense has just been lights out. I think that stat is so indicative of how, you never know how one play could change a game. I'm not going to do like the sliding doors thing here, but if you can stop an offense like Tennessee that was able to gain, we talked about almost 500 yards against your defense, and still keep them out of the end zone and still like keep it into a close game. I love Mississippi State this year. That being said, I think this is actually going to be the prove it game for Texas A&M, right? Auburn, what can we say about old Auburn, man? Sweet old Auburn. They're doing their best out there. They're doing something out there.
That was the most backhanded little bro comment you could have ever given. They're doing their best out there. That's what you got for Auburn
it's a
fans.
Group
They've been
project that I'm not sure who's doing all the work. I'm just saying, shutting down that offense is just not that impressive. And on the other end of it, I talked about it. Like Marcel Reed still has some growing to do now in an SEC where a lot of the quarterbacks have fallen back via injury or just being basura. Like Marcel Reed has a chance here, right, to kind of like weave his way through the SEC and end up like an all SEC quarterback. This Texas A&M offense has a chance to be a top, 2, 3, 4 offense in the SEC. I mean, if you're them, you're thinking, why not number one? We have all this talent. So I think this is, again, how about this? This is the most excited for this matchup I've been in a while. I've said it over and over again. I hate this matchup because of the uniforms. This matchup,
it's too much maroon,
infuriates me. And I believe I'm looking at it here. Of course, this is what I've been looking up this whole time. Unless Mississippi State's graphic department kind of made an error here, looks like it'll be maroon on black, which I'm not sure if that's better or worse. We got an Operation Blackout tweet here for A&M on September 29th. So it looks like they're blacking out Kyle Field. Mississippi State's game graphic has them wearing maroon for this specific game. So this maybe I don't know how I feel about that.
Don't like that.
Don't know how
Don't
I feel
like
about
that.
But visually, this has been a slop game for a lot of reasons over the years. This year, maybe the uniforms will be the worst we've seen, but the football itself is actually going to be awesome. There's a lot to like kind of on both sides of the ball. Again, offensive head coach versus defensive head coach versus two great coordinators on the other side. So, of course, our guy, Fluff Bothwell. Yeah, so just a ton of talent to like. And again, this is the game that, I mean, 14 points feels kind of generous here with how Mississippi State has played. I think if A&M can kind of perform well against this Mississippi State defense, that's going to legitimize them a ton to me, more so than Auburn for sure.
Yeah, because as much as I would like to be able to say A&M's run game should be able to kind of get what it wants, what Mississippi State just did to Tennessee was, I mean, I really like up until overtime when they get that, you know, the go ahead touchdown late, like, they kind of contained them. You know, it wasn't getting the chunk plays. Tennessee had a lot more success in the run game against Georgia than it did against Mississippi State, albeit in a different atmosphere. But yeah, I just feel like the takeaway for this is going to be how good is A&M? Is A&M worthy of being considered as a potential top 5 team? What do we really know about this team if Notre Dame isn't going to be, you know, the world beater defensively and all that? Like, I could see people discussing that for A&M, despite the fact that I think the good news about A&M, and this is maybe a little bit of a spin zone, is you want to see that your team can win a wide variety of games. And so far, I think winning back-to-back games the way that A&M just did with the Notre Dame win, playing out the way that it did and needing a late score after Notre Dame had kind of shut down the offense in the second half, and then A&M is still able to pull it out late, and then winning a game like that against Auburn where offensively you're just really not able to get anything going after that first drive, and it was a slog. I think it's good to have to win different types of games. Now, if there are warts in those specific units, then obviously those will be exposed at some point. Maybe some of those are going to be exposed against Mississippi State. But I just feel like that's going to be the takeaway of, like, they're not getting the style points. And A&M is not used to being a team, and I think Mike Elko, his reaction last week reflected this. A&M is not used to being a team that has its style points scrutinized. It's not. And that sounds disrespectful, little brother. I realize to say that. But it's how we talk about you if you're in the top 10 and if you're worthy of being considered a national championship candidate. Like those are the conversations that we have with these teams. LSU saw that, obviously. We talk about it with Georgia all the time. We talk about it with Alabama all the time. When you get into the top 10, A&M, this is what it's like. And these are why we have these conversations. And also because A&M, historically speaking, with all the 8-4s, have had very, very rough latter halves of the season. So obviously the natural reaction is going to be to scrutinize, to look at these areas of weakness. And I'm just getting out ahead of this for A&M fans who I feel like will be defensive probably after maybe too close for comfort win against Mississippi State.
No, yeah, I think it would be shocking, super shocking to me if A&M covered this 14-point spread. But again, I think that this is kind of where I'm drawing the line in the sand, because Notre Dame, big win on the road, not throwing that out. It did take two very insane things for that to happen, i.e. the botched hold and the last second play. Not just one, but two. Again, you win games the way you win games, and that's part of your DNA. That's the best part of it, is you were able to do that. Like, I'm giving you credit for that. That being said, you know, like I said, shutting down Auburn, not that impressive. Now, when you add a third team, and I think you're right, it's like the opposite of logo hold weight. It's like logo hold feathers or something, where I see the A&M logo and I'm like, how are you going to let me down this year? You know, I've never really been one that like drinks the A&M Kool-Aid, and that's one of the few things that I feel like I've consistently gotten right, where I'm like, hey, I'm going to wait and see. You know, if a team with a Georgia logo or a Bama logo or even an LSU logo had this resume, you know, they'd be a top 3-4 team easily. You know, Penn State's done way less than A&M this year, and they're still kind of hanging around the national conversation just for close.
Not top 4.
What's up?
Yeah. Not top 4.
But they were before, you know, the last game, and people are still acting like, you know, despite the game flow of that they belong. So anyway, I think that A&M, weirdly, again, Mississippi State logo, same thing, where it's like, you know, you feel like Notre Dame, you feel like Auburn should give you more weight. But for us real ball knowers and ball watchers across the SEC, this game's going to mean a lot for A&M, and I think they're going to win it, just not cover.
I'll come away really impressed if A&M wins this in decisive fashion. I think a lot of people would say, no big deal. I would be really impressed if A&M comes out and they put up 35 points and Le'Veon Moss just looks like the best version of himself. Ruben Owens gets going, get these chunk plays with Concepcion, and then with Craver, revenge game Mario Craver. Then I would come away feeling like, dang, like A&M is really, really for real. And I'd still actually feel okay about them, even if they win this game only by 10 points, as I predicted.
Really quick, I
All right.
saw a Michael Van Buren highlight because, of course, I did on my timeline the other day. It was like Michael Van Buren to Mario Craver. It was like, wow, they lost some dudes this year at Mississippi State. And it's crazy what they've been able to do. Anyway.
Yeah. Kevin Coleman doing great things at Mizzou.
Absolutely,
as well.
yeah.
Guy. Yeah. Tough. Lock of the week. We are so back. Yeah. Lock of the week, not fade of the week. We're back to lock of the week territory. How do you like that? Dream scenario for my alma mater, Indiana. Indiana wins. Iowa covers plus 7.5. I saw everybody freaking out over the safety that Fernando Mendoza took late. I think it was because, and I talked to the guys in the next round about this, it was because of the second half total for that, not so much the game spread, because I wasn't seeing a 7-point spread or a 6-point spread. I was only seeing 7.5. So nonetheless, Iowa covers plus 7.5 for me. So we are back to 1-4. Yeah. Lock of the week will hit this week because Penn State is a 25.5-point favorite at UCLA. Penn State can't cover a spread to save their lives this year, Will. Cannot do it. Refuse to do it.
I love the games you're picking. It's betting for Dabo. It's Indiana, Iowa. And I'm looking at Penn State going, oh, yeah, I hate Penn State. Who are they playing? Oh.
The fighting Nico Iamaleava's hits just keep piling up for UCLA. Never great when you get a Tuesday announcement on the last day of September that your offensive play caller, Tino Sinceri, is out. Speaking of Indiana, guy that was with Indiana, with Curt Cignetti, was considered a big reason why Nico chose UCLA to play in his offense. Mutually parted ways, just like Tennessee and Nico. Now, after being outscored 78-20 and having a smattering of witnesses at UCLA, 78-20, they've been outscored at home, and they had one of their home games against New Mexico. Hard to do that. Very hard to do that.
I mean, on some level, though, it's like, hey, Josh Heupel, say what you will, but he can get an offense moving if he needs to. And same thing here. It's like, okay, well, we have the guy who revitalized Tennessee football. We have the guy who revitalized Indiana, or really brought Indiana football to the forefront they've ever been. And Nico is just mowing them down.
I wouldn't go that far with Tino. Cignetti's the guy, but a big part of that was, on his staff at James Madison as well for 3 years. But yeah, it's still... Nico has not gotten a win.
For a play caller standpoint, which I guess isn't true with Heupel. I'm going to shut up. Continue.
Yeah. Nico has not gotten a win in a long time. I don't think his win is coming on Saturday against what should be a very pissed off Penn State defense. Say a little prayer for Nico because Danny Dennis Sutton, man, he's for real. He's awesome. He's really, really good. That Penn State defense, still pretty darn good, despite what happened in the whiteout against Oregon. They're going to show up with some bad intentions. Long flight, upset, getting dogged by everybody, myself included this week. Penn State minus 25.5, given a lot, but when UCLA is getting blown out at home against New Mexico, I feel like that's perfectly fine, and I'm okay with that.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, let's kick it to Matt Hayes. Fun exercise with him, picking ideal replacements at each power conference opening. Got us some other things as well, like we always do. Love talking coaching carousel with Matt. So here is Matt Hayes. For those of you who are not watching Saturday Down South podcast on YouTube and just are audio only, now would be a good time to go on YouTube and subscribe to Saturday Down South because we have all of our episodes are uploaded in full. If you like watching our individual game breakdowns, you're like, hey, you know what? 2-hour pod, that's really not for me. I really just kind of want to hear about my own team. That's fine. Saturday Down South on YouTube. We're going to have all of those matchup breakdowns. We do every single power conference game. We preview, we recap that involve the SEC. So we have so much content right now on Saturday Down South on YouTube. We have YouTube exclusive videos, and sometimes we'll do interviews that are just on Saturday Down South on YouTube. So definitely go subscribe. Please do that right now. Now excited to be joined by a very special guest. It is the one and only Matt Hayes. Read all of Matt's great work, USA Today. Matt, it's good to see you. I'm old enough to remember when
I miss
people
you, by
said,
the way, man.
I miss you. Let's, let's start there. You're right.
Because I miss working with you, man.
It is. I know. I feel like we've talked about this every single time you've come on post SDS departure for USA Today. And, we have these meetings and we're able to kind of hash out, oh, what are you writing? What am I writing? Are we going to be writing the same exact thing? And I miss having someone that I could just write a totally different column from and be like, oh yeah, Matt and I don't agree on this at all. And it's a little bit deflating. It's kind of taking the wind out of my sails a bit.
I miss hanging out with Liam Cohen's what I do. That's what I miss. Look,
you see him every week, right? You know,
you and Liam, yeah.
You know, the Jacksonville connection there. I love it. You know, Matt, I haven't seen people arguing about how the big buyout era is dead. I haven't seen people making that case this year in the way that I was last year, because don't you know it? We're October 1st. We've already got 4 power conference vacancies. Where have all of these arguments gone? What happened to them?
You know what's funny is we get into this situation where everybody's like, well, there's no more money. There's no more money, man.
Come on.
Look, you can't look. We got to pay players now, okay? There's no more money. I'm trying to get money for this or for that, and I need a new softball stadium, and there's no more money. And then, you know, within a year, it's like, all right, we're going to fire him, and we're going to pay him $15 million to leave, and we're going to go hire another guy for $10 million. There's always money in the banana stand, always. And anyone who thinks there's not is out of their mind, man. Always money.
Just got to search the sofa cushions. It's there. It's always there.
The thing is it's not. It's the only difference between the NFL and college football is you have like basically multiple owners instead of just one owner that's got to reach into his pocket. You've got multiple. Now most schools have like one main guy or one or two main guys, but there's multiple guys that can get you where you need to be. If you need to pay someone, if you need to buy someone out, you need to fire someone, you need to hire someone. There's money everywhere.
We've got 4 power conference vacancies. We're going to fill them all today. You and I, we're going to put on our AD hats. That's right. The exercise.
Let's do it.
Yeah. We'll get to all that. But before we kind of, you know, map out potential candidates and who we would hire, give me your opinion. Which job is best between UCLA, Oklahoma State, Virginia Tech, and Arkansas?
Oh my gosh. I've always thought Arkansas was a really good job. And it's. Look, I look at that place and I look at a fantastic campus, great facilities, a lot of money with 2 really big families that, you know, the Reynolds and the Walmart family. That's a lot of money there, man. And I think they'll give more for the right guy, for the right coach, the guy that can get everybody on the same page. They haven't been able to find that. We all thought Sam was that guy after the 9-4 season, and it just kind of never materialized. So I think there's potential in that job. That's a difficult job. There's no doubt about it. You know, the fact that Hunter Yurachek came out, about a week and a half ago and said that, you know, it's a difficult job doesn't help. I don't know why he would say that, but doesn't help. But yeah, I there's a lot of difficult. UCLA is a really difficult job. I wouldn't put that anywhere near Arkansas. I just think that you can get to the point where if you're at Arkansas, I think you can get to the playoff. I really do, with the right guy. So I would say Arkansas.
What's going to end up being the most attractive vacancy in this cycle? Because Florida is the obvious answer at this point, but I'm curious if you think a job like Clemson could become vacant because Dabo entertains the NFL, or if there's something else you had in mind.
Well, first off, who says Florida's going to be vacant? Okay, that's first things first.
Matt, come on.
So if you didn't fire him last year, right? No, I'm kidding. I think Virginia Tech, I want to go back to Virginia Tech real quick. That's probably the easiest path because it's the ACC and because they have things in place there. I'm not sure the money's there, but I think, again, if you get the right guy, you can find money. People will suddenly, oh, there really is money. So I think that's probably the easiest path. I mean, to me, that's like if Dan Mullen wins like 11 games at UNLV, if I'm Virginia Tech, I just sprint to go get him because he's figured out how to win tough places like Starkville, like Las Vegas. So yeah, he would be. I mean, to me, that's a perfect fit for that spot. And what would I'm already like all lost. We get this all the time when we talk. Like you go off on tangents. What was the original question again?
The original question was what's going to end up being the most attractive vacancy in this cycle? Because like the Florida answer is obvious, but if Clemson comes open, Clemson would be an incredible job. And
Why
especially
would Clemson come open?
I'm just saying there are certain people who have wondered if Dabo would entertain the NFL. And if he would,
well, the NFL would have to entertain Dabo. That's the key to that.
True. Very, very true.
I don't think that's going to happen. Plus, here's the thing with Dabo. Dabo just committed to the wrong guy at the most important position on the field. He went all in with Cade Klubnik for 3 years. If you look at mega programs, okay, Connor, mega programs in the last decade and a half, 2 decades that have fallen off for whatever reason that fell off, okay, it's always about their lack of elite play at the quarterback spot. Nebraska, Texas, Florida. Look at Florida State, unbeaten with Jordan Travis. A year later, they got DJ Ewing, and they fall all the way to 2-10. A year after that, they get a quarterback, Castellanos. Now look, they beat Miami, who has 2 better wins than Florida State this year, right? So I think he invested way too much in the most important position on the field and a guy that really wasn't a guy who could take him to an elite level. Was a guy good enough to get him to the playoff in that conference? Sure. But not to get him where he wanted to get back to where they were with Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence. And I mean, for that matter, even Taj Boyd. I don't think Klubnik's Taj Boyd. Taj Boyd's a much better player than Klubnik. So Taj Boyd, I mean, Klubnik's kind of like Kelly Bryant. I don't want to insult Kelly Bryant because Kelly Bryant might have been a better player than Cade Klubnik.
That's a take.
It's close. I can tell you that. It's close.
Kelly Bryant wasn't preseason All-American coming into the year.
I don't care what he is preseason. I just know that Kelly Bryant went in a 14 playoff. Guess what? Got Clemson in the playoff. Not a 12 team. Because if that was a 4 team last year, Clemson's not in that playoff. Oh yeah, they are. They won the ACC, so they would have been in, I guess. Well, they wouldn't have.
No, they wouldn't because they wouldn't have.
They would have been one of the Final Fours. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's put on the AD hats for this. We're hiring head coaches, realistic head coaches. Doesn't mean we're bringing Nick Saban out of retirement to coach at Arkansas. All right, like this is our favorite realistic candidate for
Is that your hot take?
No, we're not going full McElroy today. We're not doing that. Let's start with UCLA. My choice the way that this will work, I'll name my choice. You can either just take my choice. We'll be lockstep, hand in hand, handshake emoji, or you can go in a different route, but I'll give my choice and then you give yours. Is that good?
Okay.
All right. So my UCLA choice, Oregon offensive coordinator Will Stein. Guy that is blowing up right now.
Yeah,
dudes are lining up to play for him. Dudes will redshirt to play with him, like what Dante Moore did. And all of a sudden, Dante Moore, after what he did at Penn State, a lot of eyeballs on him. I don't care that he just turned 36. Mid-30s guys, in my opinion, are really good. My very unbiased opinion. And I'm just taking shots at the Dan Lanning tree. That already gave us another mid-30 star in Kenny Dillingham. Proven Big Ten play caller, which that's what you have to be at UCLA, as weird as that is. Just give the people out there something worth coming to see on a weekly basis. So I'd go with Will Stein for UCLA.
Okay, I can't even imagine who it would be for UCLA, to be honest with you, because I don't know what that administration is doing. I don't think Will Stein takes that job.
Yeah,
Why not? I think he's going to be just like Dan was when Dan was at Georgia. He's not just taking any old job. That job's a coach killer, man. I don't think he takes it. I think he waits for a better job. You might have to get like a former NFL coach or a NCAA lower division guy to come take that job. Maybe Bobby Hawk wants to take one more shot at FBS and he'll leave Montana. I don't know. But, I mean, who wants that job right now? They're $200 million in debt. I mean, it's not what it once was. Not even close. Yeah, I don't. God, I mean, they might end up having to like hire D'Anton Lynn or someone like that because I'm not sure who takes that.
What about like if we're going kind of retread, like a Dana Holgerson, somebody that's just eager to get back into the power conference world, somebody that doesn't necessarily see that path and is like, I think I got to just take this and hope that I can win 6-7 games if I'm going to hope to get back to relevance.
First off, I love Dana. Dana's my boy. I would think it would be great to see him back as a head coach. That job will kill him too. Yeah, it's going to kill anybody. It's not a good job. Dana would be great there. I mean, sure, why not? I mean, let's be honest. John Gruden, If you're literally looking for a place for John Gruden and you're looking for a desperate program that's not going to get who they think they can get, why not?
Makes more sense in Arkansas. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, they need a big personality there, a guy that can legit recruit head to head with not only USC but the other schools that come into Southern Cal and get those players. And I don't know if they have the money for the NIL, so that's going to hurt them as well. But at least you've got a legit personality as a coach that would make kids think twice. Anyway.
All right, let's go to Oklahoma State then. My choice is Oklahoma OC Ben Arbuckle, who's going to be brought up for a lot of these jobs. John Mateer, Cam Ward, Uber Eats.
Right.
It's a great resume. Really good resume
Right.
for him. Pretty wild resume for a guy that just turned 30. I would want him to say in that opening press conference, I'm a man, I'm 30. I think that would play really well. You want to talk about getting the people going in Stillwater, man. That would be incredible. And I would want him to just hire the longtime grizzled veteran defensive coordinator who isn't John Chavis or Todd Grantham, but like, the type that those guys are out
Todd
there.
Grantham just got fired, by the way.
Right, by Oklahoma State. So that wouldn't really, but you get the type that he would need probably for that type of job. And I would just want him to try and find more ways to have illegal plays that he could sneak past officials and just have a fun offense in a conference that is all about having fun offenses. So I know he'd be super, super young. Like he'd be 6 years younger than the youngest power conference coach in America, which is still Kenny Dillingham. But I think that would make a lot of sense.
I mean, speaking of Dana, that'd make a lot of sense for Dana Holgerson as well. And but I think Nebraska and Dylan Raiola have to have like a huge jump offensively for him to become a legit factor in that race. I mean, they know him there, obviously. I look at a guy like Colin Klein, I think, Texas A&M offensive coordinator. Be a nice fit there. He's grew up in that area, grew up in the idea of the Big 8, Big 12. So yeah, I mean, I think he kind of fits in there really nice. Another young guy, an offensive minded guy, which they need. Just look, that's what works there at Oklahoma State. That's what fans want to go see. You don't want to throw a defense guy in there. Throw a guy in there that runs offense, that throws it all over the place, and that understands the value of a dual threat guy at the quarterback spot that can put defenses in conflict. And I think that Colin Klein to me seems like a logical fit there.
Would love that. I think that would make a lot of sense. I almost put Dan Mullen in this spot.
That's another good one. That's another good one for him, man. He's in those fun little outpost plays that you don't think could happen, and he can win there. That's another good one for him. I will say this about Dan: he likes it out there in Vegas, man.
Yeah,
and they do whatever they want for him. Now, again, at the end of the day, it's still Vegas. You're still in a bad conference, so he still wants to, I'm sure, be back in the power conferences. So, and I mean, Oklahoma State technically is in a power conference.
Dan was living a good life before he took that job too.
He was
really
he had a nice house in Ponte Vedra, and life was good. He's on the beach all the time.
Yeah, like he was sitting pretty, and the buyout money that certainly helped. He had the good media gig, and would do the studio stuff, was good at it. Like he didn't have to take that job, so I think he still wants to get back into it. But he'd be fascinating. The only reason I would push back on that is just of that lining up. They wanted someone that was going to be able to embrace the NIL stuff, which Gundy was clearly like not on board with this new era as much as they hoped he would be. And I don't know that Dan Mullen is fully bought in from that standpoint just yet. That'd be the tougher sell probably to get him.
Yeah, but again, I think if he puts the right guys around him, he gets a GM that he lets the GM deal with all that stuff, man. You deal with the salary cap, you deal with paying players. I'm just going to coach ball. And I mean, that's dangerous because then you're giving a lot of power to a general manager, which I think some coaches are figuring out right now. But in some sense, if you're a coach that can't deal with this new era of player empowerment, that's what you have to do. I think that's what you'll see some of the older guys do is, look, I'll just hire a GM and I'll let them deal with all that crap. And again, then at 2 or 3 years down the road, that could come back to bite you. But for now, that's the idea. That's the plan.
Okay, let's go to Virginia Tech here. A job that I think is really intriguing and it should have a decent market for what they're able to do, and especially if they're really committed to spending all this money like they talked about very conveniently after the Brent Pry firing. I have Liberty head coach Jamie Chadwell.
Interesting.
Really tempted to go with Butch Jones here for the Whit Babcock connection from their days in
Right.
Cincinnati. I talked about that on the pod before. But Chadwell, he's been on all these lists. I feel like we've done this year after year with him, and he hasn't got one of these power conference jobs yet. He's making good money at Liberty at $4 million a year. So this proposed $229 million increase in athletic spending for Virginia Tech, that suggests they're going to be willing to spend to buy a head coach, essentially. And a lot of people have been like, oh, what about Beamer? But that doesn't make as much sense on his side, in my opinion. But Chadwell's a good coach, like 52-11 in the 2020s through the first 5 seasons, at places where you don't really expect that as much. So I just think him running a unique offense could, in a way, kind of be like those Dave Clawson Wake Forest teams to prepare for them, just a little bit trickier in the ACC. But yeah, I think going to his head, Jamie Chadwell will tell you his dream job is Tennessee because that's who he grew up rooting for. But that job ain't opening up anytime soon. So I think this could be a really nice fit for him.
I think it'd be a perfect fit for Virginia Tech. I don't know if they're going to pull the trigger. I love the fact that you brought up Champions of Life, by the way, that you actually thought the Champions of Life would have a chance at that job. That's impressive.
I made the connection a few weeks ago. Just the Whit Babcock thing is just something to keep in mind. It's in this day and age, Matt, you know this. It's all about alignment. These ADs are, I'm telling you.
You can be aligned all you want. If he hires Butch Jones, that fan base will revolt. They will revolt.
They're over the Brent Pry thing because of the inexperience of head coach. They don't want to hire a first time head coach at Virginia Tech. Like they're out on that idea. They want to hire somebody that's actually been there and done that a little bit. But yeah, it's a stretch. I admit it.
I think John Summerall's perfect for that job.
Yeah.
Perfect. That's a great spot for him. I like Jamie Chadwell. I think that's another good one too. I'd be happy with either one of those guys there. I mean, Summerall's is the guy that everybody says, oh, he's going to go to this guy. He's going to go here. He's going to go there. If he truly does have that opportunity, he should go to a spot that fits who he is and fits what he's about. Because in this era of player empowerment, I mean, you've got to go where you feel most comfortable, not where you think, all right, well, it looks like they've got this and they've got that, because they may not have it in a year or two. So you got to go where you're comfortable, and that place and that environment there, Virginia Tech, is perfect for him.
John Summerall is just going to be on every single list, no matter what. He is, dare I say, the closest thing, not from a personality standpoint, but just for how he's being talked about. He's the closest thing I can think of to like 2015, 2016 Tom Herman, where it's that guy that's just going to be on every single list. And when he decides it's time, he's going to have his pick of the litter. And Tom Herman, the last 10 years, he just turned 50 this offseason, is like out of FBS football, basically. And I'm not saying that it ends up like that for John Summerall, but just the it guy at that level that everybody, you heard Lane Kiffin talk about it last week, about how that guy's getting an SEC job very, very soon. Kentucky fans will be devastated if he goes somewhere else other than coming back to Lexington. But yeah, it'd be hard to imagine a world in which John Summerall is not a power conference coach at this time next year.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think there's a couple coaches along that line as well. Summerall's certainly a guy that has that SEC vibe to him. But, I mean, that Kentucky job's not easy, man.
No.
It's not. The Arkansas job, not easy.
Yeah.
So again, if you're John Summerall and you have your choice, you have your pick, I think you have to, assess, all right, well, where am I going to be in 4 years, 5 years? Now, if you're going to do it just to get paid $8 or $9 million and you get a $40 million deal, then that's fine. That's fine. Or a $50 million deal, then that's what you want. That's fine. But if you're concerned about where you are as a coach and where you are in your career, that's a difficult job to say yes to. Both those jobs are, actually.
Let's end with Arkansas. My choice for this, pretty well documented. I've been on this train for a while. I think Alex Golesh. Should be a great fit there. Friend of the program, of course. I don't think people didn't realize the uphill battle that he had at USF. And like we've lived in this state for a while, so like we've kind of seen the ebbs and flows that have happened. But I think for the casual fan, they look at that program and think, well, they had success in the 2010s and they had a moment with Willie Taggart and Charlie Straw. Like, they were 4-29 in the 3 years before he arrived. That was a rebuild of what he was doing there. And he's got to rebuild ahead at Arkansas. Like their roster turnover has just been so bad the last few years. And I just think that when you do that at a group of 5 place in this day and age in college football, your biggest challenge facing the rebuild once you actually do it is then keeping those guys on your roster. And like he's done that at a very, very high level. And Arkansas has struggled to retain talent, even though clearly like they've been strapped for cash at certain points to be able to fund that roster. So he's hungry. I think he would thrive in that setting. And his wife, Alexis, yes, it's Alexis and Alex Kolsch. Not only is she from Arkansas, she flies back there on a monthly basis to do consulting work for nursing homes, which is a little bit say anything-ish for me. I don't like we don't need to go down that road. I'm sure she's above board. She's good. But that was my first thought. I just think all those pieces make it a good fit for him at this time in his life.
Who's the bigger doppelganger for you? Is it Golch or is it Cohen?
We've addressed this. I'm a little bit of a hybrid between the two. He's got more red in his natural hair than me, but with the facial hair and when I grow it out, I could see it.
He's got the full beard too, and Liam doesn't have the full beard.
He tries. Like Liam admits that I have a better beard than him. He's admitted that many a time. He's got too much of the neck crap going on here. It doesn't look as good.
He doesn't clean it up at all either. Yeah, he doesn't care.
Alex is like he's like finely groomed. He gets the haircut once a week, and then when he doesn't, he's got the hat on. He's he likes to maintain the look, but he's the real deal. Like I've been a believer for a while.
He's freshly coiffed, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Whereas Liam is just more like ball coach.
Right.
All right, back to Arkansas. I always get us off on tangents, man. Yeah. I'll tell you what, just by what Hunter Yurchik said in that release, that Coach Petrino has said he's interested in the job and will be considered. Why would that be part of your original release?
It's so weird.
I'm going to tell you why. Because they can get him for like $4 million, and he's the guy everybody knows. I can tell you this. Years ago when I went there, and did a story on Bielema, who was taken over, and I won't say who it was, but a high-placed Arkansas official said, we can't swear on this podcast, can we?
Fire away.
Okay. It's not really a bad word. So if
you got kids in the car, just let them know. You're muffled right now.
So he said, the deal with Bobby is he's a great coach, and everybody knew he was an a-hole, but he was our a-hole.
Yeah.
See, I didn't swear for that.
That's
and
good.
I think that's kind of look, Bobby's a great coach. Bobby is not the easiest guy to get along with. There's no doubt about that.
No
right?
way. I've never heard that. That.
So I think you can get Bobby cheap because he wants it badly, and you go 3-4 years, see if it can work. If it doesn't, then you kind of banked a little cash to go find someone where it will work. And you structure the deal where we'll give you a 4-year deal, but it's, you're not getting anything. If you lose, that's it. We're not paying you $1. It's not going to be this huge $20-30 million buyout. I'm just throwing that out there, man. I'm just throwing it out there because there's no reason for Hunter to say that in his release. There's no reason. All you got to do is say, we're going to start a nationwide search tomorrow. That's it. That's all you got to say. Why would you put Bob Petrino's name in that release?
You don't have to, but you see how people react to it.
Of course.
That's what all these ADs are looking to do right now. They want the feelers out there. They want to see how people are going to react. Alignment is so important. How are people behind scenes in your athletic department reacting to that? You just get a little gauge, get a little feel for it. It doesn't mean he's fully committed to that. I can't imagine
I will tell you this.
100% set on that.
This is my thought process, and this is just us spitballing, okay? My guess is, and it's just a guess, okay? There's nothing factual about this. We're just like fooling around.
Clip it.
Is that the Reynolds and Walton families really like Bob Petrino? That would be my guess. And if you hire Bob Petrino, then suddenly they're all in. They're all in. Whereas if you hire just some guy that you don't know anything much about or no one knows much about, they're going to reserve a little bit. Because Connor, why would he put his name in that release? There's no reason to. None. It's just simply, we will start our search as soon as possible. Period. Bob Petrino's our interim coach. Bob has expressed his desire to be the head coach.
Of course.
Well, so have 300 other people. Hunter, what does that mean? I'm telling you right now, he's going to be the coach there at Arkansas. You wait and see.
Let's end on that.
Unless they completely implode and they finish, 2-9, or 2-10.
True.
Well, they have more. They have 3 wins right now, anyway, don't they? No, they have 2.
Just 2.
Yeah.
We'll see. Matt, you're the best.
I just threw us completely off there, man.
Right. I love it. Right. That's the walk-up. That's how we end this.
That is.
Appreciate it, man. We'll talk soon.
All right, bro. Good to see you.
All right, well, let's close with some lad of the week. I already teased mine earlier. You want me to start? You said you got one in the weeds for us today.
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, you go first.
So my lad of the week is a gentleman named Ben Garrett. He is the Rivals on 3 person for Ole Miss. So of course, after the Ole Miss game, I'm sitting here being fed Ole Miss tweets. Again, not super sad because I feel like LSU deserved it, but just Ole Miss is all over my algorithm. And I get led to this stream where this Ole Miss guy is like live streaming at like 1 a.m. Now, you know me. I love a 1 a.m. midnight live stream. I feel like that's where the real chaos happens. And he basically is announcing his layoff from On 3. And he's sitting there and he's going, okay, this was a complete shock to me. I'm trying to battle these emotions of this great Ole Miss win. I've been an Ole Miss fan my entire life. I went to Ole Miss. My whole family went to Ole Miss. I'm an Ole Miss guy, but I got to reconcile that I no longer work for this team. And the stream goes on for like 40 minutes. And he's sitting there talking about like how much he's shouting people out, talking about the fans mean to him. And I kind of do a little bit of research, realized he'd built this Ole Miss, kind of the third Ole Miss site over the course of years and years and years. And he kind of goes into like some of his personal stuff. And I don't know him well enough to speak on any of that, but he admitted to like making some mistakes, kind of professionalism along the way. So I'm not saying he is a saint. But over the course of like 24 hours, he tweeted kind of the next day or Sunday, like, hey, I actually was able to get my job back after there was an outcry of support from the Ole Miss board. I actually found the On 3 board. I'm not going to get into the names that were involved there, but basically, they post, hey, this guy's no longer going to be with us. He left an all-time catty comment under the post of his dismissal, which, there you go, King, go off. And then he immediately, goes live and is like, guys, I love this community. I love this board. I want to be here with you guys. And all the fans stood up and they kind of had a revolt. And they were like, hey, Ben Garrett, we're rocking with you. If you're not here, we're going to kind of cancel our subscription or whatever. And so he comes out, puts out his tweet the next day. But it was just cool to see that much raw emotion. Like he just kept, me, I'm not a religious guy, but he's like blessing, thanking God for all the opportunity he had and his family. And you could see that he was distraught, but at the same time, like dealing with all this stuff in an era of kind of like professionalism and kind of just PR statements and these like cloak and dagger behind the scene moves. Watching a dude with like love for his team and love for his craft and love for the fans live, like had like a Corona and was just kind of sipping it. It was just talking to people that he'd been talking to for a long time. Again, I'm not taking a guy's side or anything, but it's just cool to see that amount of like realness in an era where it's all been commodified. So good for him, being able to continue to work at what's now called Rebel Grove on 3. He said he got a call from Shannon Terry, the man himself. So it's just cool. Like I said, we've talked about kind of the journalism layoffs and what kind of got me out of the profession where, it's just harder and harder and everybody's kind of getting streamlined. It's good to see a guy fight back and win. So good for you, Ben Garrett. You're lad of the week.
Ole Miss fans, they Shiano'd him. That's amazing. Golly.
They literally Shiano'd him. They did the reverse Shiano where it's like, you're not firing this guy.
Yeah, we will revolt. You think the square can get wild on a Saturday night after beating LSU, buddy? You ain't seen nothing yet. You get our guy back, you get him reporting on this team, or else you will never see the end of this. Look, one can only hope, and this business is brutal. I mean, absolutely brutal. There are talented people that get laid off left and right. There are so many moments having this job in which I have said to myself, I'm grateful that I'm not part of this round of layoffs here, this round of layoffs there. And it's just inevitable. It kind of comes with the territory and it sucks. But all I could ever hope for is if I am in one of those spots that there would be enough of a revolt to get me back my job. That's it. He can walk, he can retire now. You're good. That's all anybody ever wants. Satisfaction from your viewership. That's the dream, baby.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's the thing. Is like I couldn't imagine. I couldn't imagine saying, "All right, guys, I guess I'm gone," and waking up to everyone being like, "No, come back. We gotta have you back." Like that has got to be the most fulfilling feeling, especially with kind of how emotional he was. So yeah, I think you gotta like label your fan base and start building that crowd support. Kind of have your Ogaggle, whatever you would call them. Your whatever the beehive, the Bayhive would
Not
be for
that.
you, and get it. I know. I'm just spitballing here. I'm the marketing guy. So good for Ben Garrett. He was able to kind of get the love going, and I'm now going to be tuned into his Ole Miss coverage.
How about that? Just building the brand back up. Very, very much respect that move. All right, my lad of the week is Dan Lanning. Teased it earlier. I just who's anti Dan Lanning outside of Washington fans right now? Are people not buying how good he is at this already? Because to go into that atmosphere, which I know I make my James Franklin jokes, I've got a couple saved up for this. But to go into that atmosphere and win on that stage after it looks like your team blew it down the stretch. It looks like you blew a 2-touchdown lead in the fourth quarter, and you're going to have this all-time loss, and people that are like, he's kind of doing some of the late game management stuff that we fear with the first-time head coach. And instead, no, your team finds a way to go out and win. They make a play in overtime. Who could ever imagine that Drew Aller was going to throw an interception in that moment? I mean, just great. Couldn't have seen that coming from a mile away at all. But Dan Lanning's just the real deal. He's the real deal. And I don't know how many coaches in college football right now that you would say I would want over that guy for the next decade. I really don't. Things change a lot in this business, but just think about this, Will. He gets that job in 2022. He just got his 5th win over an AP top 10 team. You know who's got 4 wins against AP top 10 teams?
Who? James Franklin?
Big game James. Yep. He's got multiple wins over Penn State already. Comes into the Big Ten and basically does the things that people thought Penn State was about to do. The guy he's remarkable. I just have so much respect for him. This Dante Moore thing, I don't think it should come off as a surprise, but I don't think we should ignore it because this is his 3rd different quarterback in as many years. Okay. And he is leading the Heisman race. I'm not saying Dante Moore is perfect or anything like that, but for a defensive-minded head coach to have figured out that side of the ball is unbelievable. Unbelievable. And you could say he inherited a good situation from Mario Cristobal. In this day and age of the portal and whatnot, I don't think you can ever really assume that somebody's walking into a perfect situation. Talk about that with DeBoer. Even though you have talent, there are still things you're working around early on there. Dan Lanning's just awesome. He's just awesome. He's a dude. I hope he's a part of our sport for a really long time. I saw it was I think it was Jordan Rodriguez for The Athletic who was saying how the NFL, they're going to come calling for Dan Lanning. You think? Who would want to get a piece of Dan Lanning right now?
You know what? I hope he stays in college forever.
Yeah.
And this is an age that you might want to just cover your. How old do you think Dan Lanning is? Do you know?
Dan Lanning's 39.
He sure is, man. And you know what's crazy? When I Googled that, Tosh Lapoy came up. Tosh Lapoy is 5 years older than him. That's a guy I feel like I've heard is like kind of a whisperer for a while. Yeah, I mean, he feels right now kind of the way that Kirby felt in the lead up to the back-to-back, where it's like, he's going to get there. He's going to get there, in terms of a commodity. Okay, if you have literally Kirby Smart, you want your guy. Maybe there are a couple of guys around the country where you go, I like my guy a little bit more. But in terms of potential versus reality, the fact that a guy could kind of, stay there for a while, I don't think the NFL would suit him at all, especially if you watch his post-game interview. Who would have thought, if you're Penn State, you're like, this is Oregon. They can't come up to, the north and win. It's like, this guy's been skiing all day. Don't worry, buddy. He's ready for the cold. And so point being, the way that he gets fired up, the way that he gets his team going, we could say it's a little bit, cringe or whatever, but he backs it up. That's the thing that, that's my favorite thing is like, talk some mess and back it up. That's what it's about. That's what sports are about, is saying, I'm going to beat you. It's like what Jordan said, talking trash doesn't mean anything if you're winning. Talk trash when the score is 0-0. And that's what Dan Lanning's been able to do. And we can talk about, playoff collapse last year, but look at what Ryan Day's career has been versus Dan Lanning. He would have to go through respectfully abysmal failure to get to where Ryan Day was when he beat Dan Lanning. So the future is so bright for him. I think he's a cool enough guy. Seems like a guy you get a beer with, which is really weird.
Awesome.
In this age of like psychos, it's always been psychos running cultural teams. So yeah, it seems like a cool dude, man.
Seriously though, how many guys, if you could just start a team tomorrow and say, 10 years. I'm going to give you that runway. Go win us national titles. Go have us in the playoff every single year. I'd take Kirby over him. I'd even think about it. He's the only guy I think that I would take ahead of Dan Lanning at this point. And if you're pushing back on that take and saying, oh, he hasn't won a playoff game yet, blah, blah, blah. It's like, I think it's a matter of time for him. He doesn't have the things that are holding him back in the way that one James Franklin does, especially when you put into context that he's already got more wins over top 10 teams than James Franklin does. Yeah, he's awesome. Dan Lanning, I couldn't be any more all in on him as a head coach.
Absolutely.
All right, man. That's a pod. That'll do it. Please, please, please leave us a 5-star review. Subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can watch every episode of the Saturday Down South podcast. Follow us on Twitter at the STS Pod, at Sat Down South, at CJ O'Gara, at Go So Hard. Thanks, guys. Talk soon.